a long time ago, you needed a prototype to get a patent. So you needed to have a product built in order to demonstrate it to the patent office and have them decide to grant you the patent. But that's no longer the case, hasn't been that way for at least 100 years. And I don't know the precise history, the precise dates, but you know, through any of our lifetimes, it has not been necessary for you to have a complete working prototype. What is necessary is for you to have enough information about the invention so that someone in the field could follow through and make the invention based upon your description without undue experimentation. So that final part, without undue experimentation, that's the important part, because it's not like you need to have the blueprint. It's not like you need to have a blueprint that shows every detail, that shows every screw and, you know, and has every dimension. Like, that's just not what's required for a patent, because when someone in the field, what they say, someone of ordinary skill in the field of the invention, when they're able to make your product without undue experimentation, then you've satisfied the requirement. So in many fields where there's a high level of skill, you don't need to have too much detail. If you're going to say that this is a computer system that involves a server connected to an individual computer, and that there is a storage device like a hard drive attached to it, you don't have to lay it out in full detail. You don't have to explain how to make the computer. You don't have to explain how to make the hard drive. You don't have to explain what type of interconnection it is, what type of cabling you use, because that's stuff that's all well known in the field of the invention. People who are in the computer field know what all of those things are. So in general, when it's something that would be pretty well known to people in the field, you don't have to worry about that detail. If it's something which is outside the realm of what's well known scientifically, like if you say, you know, my invention is a spaceship with an anti-gravity module. Okay, well, people don't commonly know how to make an anti-gravity module. So that's something that you need to explain in detail. And as a matter of fact, if it's something that's that far out there, you might actually need to prove that it works. And this comes into play sometimes when people try to patent what they call a perpetual motion machine. Now, perpetual motion machine is like when you invent something that creates energy. You know, like there's these classic ideas where you have like some type of wheel that's spinning and you attach a motor to it to make it spin. And that motor is driven by a battery, right? But then there's a generator also on the wheel that then charges the battery. And people say, well, you know, you start it up and then it will keep going forever, because even though the batteries being used to make the motor move, the generator is taking that energy and recharging the battery. Well, doesn't work that way. You can't create energy like that device will lose energy rather quickly, or at the very least over time. Energy will be lost from the system due to friction. The point is, if you tried to patent something like that, it would get rejected, because you're claiming something that violates the laws of physics. So in that case, you'd probably need to prove that yeah, you probably need to prove that the invention works. So you might actually need a prototype in that case. But for all intents and purposes, no, you don't need a working prototype to get a patent. And I had an additional question here that tags onto it, which is my prototype was satisfactory to me. The manufacturer suggested a few changes. Should I update the drawings in the provisional utility patent? We are ready to file except for this. Okay, so here's the thing. What's you know, what you present in your patent application doesn't need to be the same as what was in your prototype, because it's not like you're patenting your prototype. You're patenting the concepts that you believe are distinct about your invention that make it patentable. So you know, if there's you know, if there's some changes that you think you need to make in order to make the concept solid, then maybe you ought to update maybe you ought to update the drawings to reflect that. Um, but that's really the main question there. The other thing to keep in mind though too is if the manufacturer suggests some changes under the right circumstances, they could be considered a co-inventor. You see, anyone who contributes to what's called the claimed features of the invention uh, may be considered a co-inventor in that patent. So if you're whatever manufacturer you're working with, if you're going to incorporate those things, you want to make sure you have a good relationship with them, because if your attorney feels that they should rightfully be a co-inventor, then you'd want to have them, that manufacturer, willing to sign paperwork, not only sign the patent application because the inventors of the patent application need to sign, and all the inventors need to be named and need to sign, but also they want to sign what's called an assignment, which then conveys the rights to you. So even though they're signing as a co-inventor, you want to immediately have those rights transferred to you, so that if you do get the patent, you own the patent and they don't have the rights to it. And just keep in mind that that's how things customarily go. Like in corporations, people often invent things for their company. And when the patent application is filed, they're named on the patent application, but then they're also signing the rights over to the corporation, which usually they have an obligation to do, either due to their employment agreement or just because it's considered a work for hire, which means when it's clear that you're doing something um, and you've been hired to invent, then you're ordinarily obligated to provide those rights to the company as what's called a work for hire. But so then just now completing your question here, so that like you had some changes that it sounds like they were beyond what mattered to you because you thought it was satisfactory to you before that, then maybe it's not something that you should update um, in the in the provisional or utility patent application. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We do this every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can click the link in the post to be invited to join us on the Zoom, so you could then ask me anything about patents and trademarks.